This mercenary leveling build has been smooth sailing. You can sprint around enemies, dropping grenades as you go, which means you're spending less time fighting enemies and more time getting to where you need to be. Well-placed grenades will practically one-shot rare mobs, and bosses are no problem as well. I'm just about to enter Act 4, so I'm going to give you the info up to this point, and then tomorrow I'll update you with the rest of the build. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and come join me on my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/screamhard. Now let me break it down for you. So the first thing you should know is that this build can actually work for almost any class, but obviously the closer you're going to be to projectile damage, the better. There's also grenade bonuses at the bottom, so I highly recommend starting with Mercenary. But if I had to choose the second best option, it would be Ranger. So for my ascendancy, I went with Tactician, but that doesn't actually matter too much. You can go with Witch Hunter or Tactician. And if you start as a Ranger, then obviously you're going to be coming through this side and meeting up with my path there. Now before we get into the specifics of the tree, let me walk you through the actual skills and what we're doing. So the bread and butter of the build is going to be Explosive Grenade, which is actually a grenade you can get right at the beginning of the game. For reference, here it is under the tier 1 gems. Now if you didn't watch my previous video, I highly recommend that the first thing you do in the game is get yourself a strong two-handed weapon, so that could be a two-handed mace, crossbow, or quarterstaff. Two-handed mace is going to be your best bet, but if you happen to use crossbow, it's okay because you're going to be transitioning to it anyways. But that's going to be your single target damage, and you're going to use the basic attack. But for AoE, you're going to be using the Explosive Grenade. Now, very early on, I do recommend that you go for Contagion. This is going to help you do additional AoE, so you can cast this on an enemy and then start dealing damage. In Act 1, you're going to be able to get skill gems from Clearfell, which has a camp that has a gem in a box. There's also the quest for the Mud Burrow, which gives you a support gem and a skill gem. And then when you get to Grellwood, you're going to get another support gem from the Witch. And actually, if I remember correctly, the Abyss League offers an additional support gem from that quest. So you actually get 3 support gems right in the beginning. Those are guaranteed. So early on, you're going to be looking for your Explosive Grenade, and you're going to go with Multi-Shot. Unfortunately, they moved the Expedite, aka Short Fuse now, over to tier 2 gems. So you can't get that right away, and that does hold this back a little bit in the early game. But as soon as you get a tier 2 gem, this feels really smooth. And there's also some spots on the passive tree, which I'll show you later, that reduce the detonation time. But in addition to multi-shot, you can just go with Fire Infusion or Concentrated Effect in the early game. Another piece of the puzzle is going to be Rapid Shot, which you're going to get once you get to your tier 5 gems. Now Rapid Shot doesn't do a ton of single target damage on its own, although it's not too bad. But what Rapid Shot's going to do is you're going to build up heat. And since you have a cooldown on your Explosive Grenade anyways, you can use your Rapid Shot in between to build up heat, which empowers the Explosive Grenade to deal more damage. So you're going to shoot your Explosive Grenade, fire with your Rapid Shot, you're going to look for 15 stacks of heat, and then you're going to fire again. That'll give you the increased damage on your Explosive Grenade, and it'll also prevent your Rapid Shot from overheating, because if you hold it down too long, and you get to 30 stacks, then you overheat and you're not going to be able to continue shooting. And overheating actually takes quite a while to run off, so you want to make sure to avoid that. Another tip for the early game is you're going to want to use Disengage, which is a spear skill, and you can see it here right at the start. This is going to help you with some mobility, and you can use a spear in your swap hand. So basically, anytime between fighting, you can either disengage and dodge roll, or if you have a longer distance, you can sprint. I've actually gotten into the habit of sprinting now, and I like it more than most of the mobility skills. But obviously, if you're at risk of getting hit by enemies, sprinting is dangerous. For my first spear gem, I go with Herald of Ash, and this gives you a lot of extra AoE potential, so that whenever you kill things with your Explosive Grenade, they're doing additional damage to all nearby enemies. Now the support gems in Herald of Ash and Rapid Shot are not nearly as important as the ones in your Explosive Grenade, which by the way, if you happen to get your lesser Jeweler's Orb, I went with Elemental Armament 2 as my additional damage here. But for the supports with Rapid Shot, I went for Fire Attunement and Fresh Clip, and for Herald of Ash, I went with the Concentrated Area and Vitality. Early on, before you get Rapid Shot, you can go with the Crossbow Shot, which I used Lightning Attunement and Brutality in. And then a little bit later, once you have the ability to use your Leap Slam, you can swap your spear for a one-handed mace, and you can use Leap Slam with rapid attacks for more movement, and you can use Shield Charge as well. Although I've noticed I don't actually use Shield Charge anymore, I just end up using Sprint. And Leap Slam I'm basically reserving for when I'm jumping over gaps. Otherwise, sprinting seems to be the better way to go. Now these are extras and I don't actually use them too much, but you can use Mortar Cannon or the individual other grenades on their own. So for example, Gas Grenade I used pretty early, and I would alternate between my Explosive Grenade and Gas Grenade. And then later I added an Oil Grenade. Eventually I threw them both into Mortar Cannon so I could automate it, so whenever you want to, you can just throw that down and it'll attack enemies. And for one more defensive layer, since I had the extra Spirit, I went with Wind Dancer. So in the passive skill tree, you're mostly looking for projectile damage, which we get a lot of here in the early part of the tree. And like I said, if you come from the Ranger side, you can get that here as well. Then you get some extra two-handed damage, and this actually gives you a bunch of main attributes, so you can make sure you can hit your gear requirements easily. Then right below, you start getting to the juicy stuff. This gives you a bunch of cooldown reduction for your grenades, and 1 extra cooldown use, which means that in the tank I have 4 rather than 3. Over here I've got more grenade stuff for reducing the grenade detonation time, so that's really helpful for getting it to blast earlier. I opted for a little bit of cooldown reduction here, but before I went to that, I actually came down and I got this one here, which allows our grenades to explode twice at a 15% chance. And that works for each individual grenade. So when you shoot out 4, it's a pretty good chance that you're gonna get additional blasts. And this one here is just a 30% chance to reload your crossbow immediately, which is not necessary, especially since we have a big clip, but it's only 2 additional points for a 30% chance, so why not? Now, if you go past this point before I get around to putting out the next video, just make sure you're pathing to anything that's going to give you additional projectile damage. You can opt for cooldown and area of effect, such as these over here. There's some juicy attack speed right above where we currently are. You could go for defensive stuff, like getting more armor and evasion, or anything you think is going to be valuable early. These 2 points here I was considering. It gives you 1 extra projectile, and it is tempting, but 50% increased grenade detonation time is quite a bit. I think I might go for this once I have the 80% less gem, because that'll counter most of the issue. But for now, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. When it comes to the gear, it's not too complicated. For your crossbow, you're going to want to go for anything that has a lot of physical damage. Obviously, if you can get increases to projectile skill levels, that's good as well. I don't value attack speed as much in this build, but it does make things feel better when you have it. But realistically, if you just focus the physical damage, you should be fine. And also, flat damage to any of the random elements is extremely nice as well. For the rest of your items, it doesn't really matter too much. Just try and hit your resistances and some basic defensive stats. Obviously, focus on movement speed on your boots so you can get around faster. And now I'm going to talk about some stuff that's not as general. This is more specific to the Tactician. So I personally am going for additional armor, because the armor is going to also give me deflection, and the evasion gives me extra ailment threshold, so this is a nice little pair. We get a lot of armor and evasion options down in the center of the tree. But my goal with this build eventually is to go towards solid plan, which I currently have, to get more reservation, and then I'm going to go up here to whoever pays best. And if you look on the tree, there's a lot of options for additional glory. So I'm going to be hitting some of these nearby nodes to get extra glory, and I'm going to run banners. The one I'm most excited for with that is one that gives 30% movement speed, which is quite a lot. If you feel your damage falling off at any point throughout your build, make sure that you upgrade your weapon. That's probably the most important thing that's going to keep you from doing damage, assuming you're doing everything else correctly. But that's about it for now. I don't want to go too in depth on this because it's the first day and I'm trying to grind as much as possible. So I'll see you guys in my stream at twitch.tv/screamheart, or I'll see you in my next video. Catch you guys later.
Subscribe to Screamheart. He's more than an old fart. He makes lots of fun builds. I promise his streams chill. He should probably be faster. Come watch this disaster.